Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. Pleased to say that joining us are Jonathan Liew from The Guardian and The Sun's Charlie Wyatt. Welcome to you both. Let's quickly run through the back pages to set the scene. In Jonathan's paper, The Guardian, Brooks' captaincy up and running, cricket front and centre. It sends a negative signal. Simmons hits out at Ratcliffe over United women remarks, and Chelsea closing on £30 million Delap as they seek to build dynasty. Front page, the Telegraph Sports Supplement. Again, that transfer story is there with the cricket. Delap opts for Chelsea over United, their take. In the Times, again, the cricket features the ODI win over the West Indies. Welcome to Brook Ball. £30 million Delap set for Chelsea, and City eye former Liverpool number 2 Pep Lijnders. In the Sun, we'll be back. Haaland at the heart of a 10-year domination plan for City. A robot mock-up of Haaland. Enzo's Delap and Sancho deals. Chelsea featuring there, and so Ahmed at mum abuse, Ahmed Diallo. And that is concerning an insult towards his mum, he says. Well, let's start with Liam Delap's move to Chelsea. And Charlie, come to you with the Telegraph. The headline, Delap opts for Chelsea over United. Is that your understanding, and is that a common sense decision based on Champions League, or something more deep about the state of the clubs?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Chelsea have been confident of getting their man for some time, even though there's been unbelievable interest in Delap from Manchester United and Everton and Newcastle. Because, you know, he's 22, he's had a good season with Ipswich, tailed off a bit towards the end, I thought, but got 12 goals, but he's seen as a real talent. And it's been a decent few days for Chelsea, isn't it? Of course, having won a European trophy, not won a competition they really wanted to be in, but nevertheless, they've also got Champions League football, and now it looks as though they've got a really good striker, or certainly a forward with real potential. It'll be really interesting to see how he gets on. Of course, he's played for Enzo Maresca before at Manchester City at the academy. He's played with Cole Palmer before in the academy at Manchester City. And I think that has maybe swayed his decision, along with the fact that comparing Chelsea and Manchester United at the moment, well, there is no comparison, is there? So I can see why he's made that choice.
No, indeed. And he scored 35 goals in 36 games, the under-21s, under Maresca's point out John Percy and Mike McGrath in the Telegraph. Let's go to the Times, continue with the same theme, Jonathan. £30 million Delap set for Chelsea. Peter Rutzler and Paul Hurst with the story there for them. What is this? Is this a sign of a great potential, or a bit of a gamble? What do you make of Liam Delap, the coveted attention he's receiving at 22 years of age?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously he's not the finished article as a striker, but he has so many of the attributes that a lot of players of his age don't have. If you are a club of Chelsea's size and you're shopping in the market for a number 9 or a striker, you want the physical aspect. You want someone who can hold the ball up. You want someone who works hard off the ball, and you want someone with Premier League experience. And those players don't exist. You know, a lot of if you're looking for an English or a Premier League experience number 9 who's getting games at 21, 22, they just aren't around. Delap is very much in a class of one in that respect, and yeah, he probably needs to work on elements of his game. He's still a developing player. Ironically, given his size, he probably needs to work on his aerial game a little bit, but he has shown so much class and so much heart and character with Ipswich this season. And his game has come on so much. Basically, they signed him as a winger almost. He was playing as a winger last season in the Championship. But he's learned that number 9 role. He's added levels. He's added physicality to his game. And for that fee, I think it's an absolute... I mean, yes, it's obviously a gamble in the sense that all talent is a gamble. But for that fee, you're not getting a striker anywhere near that class for anywhere like that kind of fee. So I think for Chelsea and their ownership, it's just it's a no-brainer.
Attractive release clause, isn't it, Charlie? In the Mirror, the headline, Delap of honour. What's your take on what happens next season at Charlie? Could he be the starter, or do you think he'll be understudy to Nicholas Jackson?
Well, I think he needs to be given time. And, it is a step up for him, particularly in the Champions League. But as Jonathan says, he's got the attributes to do so. It is still a few parts of his game he needs to work on. But, yeah, I mean, in today's, bonkers world of silly transfer fees, £30 million. I mean, it's an unbelievable deal. Obviously, it's not been the greatest transfer for Ipswich in terms of the fact that they signed him for 15 million, rising to 20, had a clause of 40 million, but that has gone down to 30. So they've not actually made, a huge profit on actually giving him the chance of playing in the Premier League, having, been at Hull, the previous season. So it's not exactly sort of been a lucrative one for them because they'd spent, 140 million in total. But for Delap, he is a real opportunity for him. And, I'm sure Maresca, having worked with him before, will know how to get the best out of him. As you mentioned, a brilliant scoring record for the under-21s. And maybe by moving to Chelsea, by having a really good season next year, that could get he can force his way into the senior squad for the World Cup next year.
It needs to be a long-term success to Harry Kane. That's a really interesting point, isn't it? In a reunion with Cole Palmer at club level too. Let's go to the other side of Manchester. We mentioned Manchester City there. Manchester United, The Guardian in your paper, Jonathan. Explain this story, if you will. It sends a negative signal. Simmons hits out at Ratcliffe over United women remarks.
Yeah, Kelly Simmons, the outgoing head of women's football at the FA, and she has made these quite outspoken comments, but I think quite true, to be honest, at the Fair Game conference about Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who I think has made no bones or been pretty unequivocal since he's joined the club, and the fact that the women's team is not remotely his priority. He's used phrases like it's not what drives the dial, it's not the core part of the business, and quite apart from being, really kind of boneheaded from a visuals and an optics and a PR point of view, given the fact that the women's team have been far more successful than the men's team, really, in the last few seasons. It's also bad business. As clubs like Chelsea and Arsenal and Barcelona are discovering, you invest now in your women's team as a long-term investment, because this is a game that is growing rapidly. It's a game that has no ceiling really in terms of the potential market it can reach, and investors are getting that. Sponsors, commercial outlets, broadcasters are managing to grasp this. But for Jim Ratcliffe, who's still kind of pinching the pennies at Carrington and getting rid of free lunches and the making cuts to the club's community budget, it's very much a sort of a narrow-minded, short-term kind of thinking.
It's difficult to pass out exactly how bad the finances are at Manchester United, isn't it, Charlie? As Jonathan says there, an era of frugality, austerity at Carrington, but he should be going to the Women's FA Cup final, shouldn't he?
Should be supporting it, of course he should. And let's not forget, Manchester United were disgracefully late to the party in terms of taking women's football seriously. Most of the other clubs had proper setups way before United decided they were, way behind. So they've got a lot of catching up to do. Obviously, they had some success on the pitch. But as Jonathan says, while, in the past, women's football has lost some money, in a financial point of view, the teams were taking it seriously. It's going to be profitable, and there's endless opportunities. So I think it's crazy from Jim Ratcliffe to say what he has. Equally, in terms of his focus, he will argue that the women's team is not losing anywhere near as much money as the men's team. So that will be his worry, and it's all about money. And of course, at the moment, that first team at Manchester United is hemorrhaging cash, which is why, of course, they've gone to the Far East to play an absolutely ridiculous post-season tour just to earn £7.5 million.
We'll come on to that in a second. I just want to get your sense, Jonathan, on just the future of women's football, because we've got this fascinating prospect. I know your colleague Tom Gary has written about the London City Lionesses coming up to the WSL, broke away from Millwall Football Club. We know they have a really rich backer behind them in Michelle Kang. But just wonder, is there a future where we see women's teams as separate entities? Is there a sense that there is a holding back that happens with the affiliation with the men's?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. You talk to people within the game, and within the women's game, and they do say, like, London City Lionesses they're not really a serious prospect. They are trying to make big name signings and smart signings to help them stay in WSL next season. But it's also a really interesting model for how the women's game progresses, because it's really a bet on the fact that if you're a women's football team, you either have the big backing and the big fan base that a big men's club can give you, or you try and break out and establish an entirely new brand, an entirely new team, and basically try and find new fans that weren't really going to the game before. So if they do succeed with that, I think it unlocks all kinds of exciting new markets that the women's game probably needs to try and attract if it's going to grow to the extent that its investors would like it to.
Interesting. I remember Doncaster Bell's been the top team when I was a boy. Interesting to see how that situation develops in women's football. Let's talk about the development of Manchester United, mainly the men, I suppose, here in the Telegraph with Mike McGrath. United's tour de farce feels like purgatory. He reports from this post-season tour, Charlie. Players and manager want to heal wounds and rest up after torrid season, but instead are trapped on cash-driven jaunt. Do you think it's been an ill-advised trip?
It's been an absolutely terrible trip from start to finish. It's the last thing they needed. Of course, none of those players wanted to go there. And while Ruben Amorim has explained the reasoning behind it, and to a degree he's got to be seen to support it, it's not really helping anybody. As I said earlier, £7.5 million to send the players over there. They've been booed in their first game. There's been other issues as well. We've now got Harry Maguire and a couple of the other players now having to fly to India rather than play the second match in Hong Kong. So they're going to be returning to Manchester in a few days' time, wanting a rest, but barely getting one, because a lot of them are all going to be reporting with their countries next week for the internationals. It's insane that United have chosen this tour. But they're not the only ones. Tottenham and other clubs have done it before. They complained about too many games, and then they do these tours at the end of the season, or have long ones at the start of the year, of the summer.
It's a great top line here, Jonathan. Manchester United's money-generating trip, writes McGrath, is fast becoming the most infamous Far East tour since Paul Gascoigne in his dentist chair's escapades almost 3 decades ago. At least that looked fun for at least some of the people involved in that. What do you make of this bleak trip, and how detrimental could it be for Manchester United as Amorim tries to rebuild after what was a pretty torrid season?
Yeah, I mean, there was a great long read by Laurie Whitwell in the Athletic about this a few days ago, and what he was saying is that there were really serious internal discussions at United about whether or not to go on this tour, whether they should, at the end of what's going to be a really long season, whether they should try and just stay local and save a bit of money and try and regroup. A lot of people at this club just want the season to end. They don't want to be prolonging it in the Far East. But obviously, commercial factors have overridden that in the end, and obviously there's this promotional tour to India as well, which I think a lot of players wanted to go on because it means they go home a few days earlier. That's where we're at now. And I think obviously it's funny, it's Manchester United. They're in a pickle, and we're supposed to sort of poke fun at this. But if you look at the players that have gone on this trip, they're kind of at the end of their tether. It's been a season that has been horrific in so many ways, and on a real human level, I feel sorry for them in a way. I know a lot of they've got a great job and they're playing professional football, but I think a lot of them seem a bit dead behind the eyes, and they just need a sun lounger and they need some time with their families, and instead they have to go on this ridiculous jaunt.
Indeed, and it's very peculiar, isn't it? Because a lot of their futures seem to be up in the air as well. Jonathan and Charlie, thank you very much for now. We will take a quick break. When we come back, though, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning's papers, including this in The Sun. We'll be back. Haaland at the heart of 10-year domination plan for City, and a Terminator theme there. Welcome back to you. You are watching Back Pages tonight, and welcome back to our guests, Jonathan Liew from The Guardian and The Sun's Charlie White. Jonathan, I'll come to you with The Sun Online to talk darts. Sir Luke Humphries beats Luke Littler in a thriller to win the title for first time. Jonathan, is it fair to say both weren't necessarily at their best, but this rivalry is becoming ever more compelling?
I think that's pretty fair. Yeah, I mean there was a really long leg in the first half. I think Littler went. He threatened to go 4-0, 5-0 up at one point. Humphries wasn't really at his best. The second half, after the break, it's some of the best stuff I've honestly seen Humphries play. in any form of the game, because Littler was pretty much at his top level. He did not lie down. He put a hell of a lot of pressure on him, and Humphries kind of withstood him. I think he would have said himself he was second favourite going into the playoffs, going into this final, and going into the second half of that game. And he showed real steel there. And he's now won all of the kind of the Triple Crown events, as you call it, the Premier League, World Championship, match plays. Also won the Grand Slam, and I think legitimately these two are streets ahead of everyone else at the moment.
Luke Littler, of course, has brought so much attention to the sport, Charlie. Do you feel he needs this dance partner in Luke Humphries, though, that brings it even more attention, that there is this serious rivalry?
It is absolutely vital for the sport to have this rivalry, because Luke Littler was obviously going to be around for a very long time. And yeah, I mean, these two are box office now, aren't they? 15,000 in there tonight. I'm sure they could have sold many more times than that. Everyone knew that the darts was on today. Interesting afterwards that it sounds as though Phil Taylor was also giving some advice to the winner as well. So he sort of got involved as well. But it's a friendly rivalry, but I think it's an important one. And I think that will thrive. And I think it will probably in the long term be good for Littler as well to have someone still there, because I think it would be boring for the sport, as we've seen in other sports, if you've just got one bloke who's miles better than everybody else.
It's intriguing psychologically, Jonathan, isn't it, as well, because they team up for the World Cup of darts, but as Charlie says there, they're good friends too. It's quite a kind of interesting relationship.
Yeah, and frankly, good luck to everyone else there. I know Van Gerwen's missing out for Holland as well, which affects their chances. So, yeah, I think it is good for the sport that they get on. I mean, Humphries, even though he's not the world champion anymore, has been a fantastic ambassador for the sport. I think everyone will say that. Generally, few people on tour have a bad word to say about him. Littler, obviously, he's box office. He brings the eyeballs, and he raises the standard as well, because I think a lot of people have had to play at their very best, have found an extra level to try and compete with him. So yeah, I mean, it is really exciting times. You just want to see the chasing pack, how they respond to this kind of duopoly.
Absolutely. Going to watch that and see what the reaction is in the world of darts. So let's talk cricket, Jonathan. Can I stay with you, with your paper? Brooks' captaincy up and running is the Guardian headline. 400 runs on your first game in charge. Not bad. What was your assessment?
Yeah, really encouraging. I mean, as much with the ball, actually, with guys like Jamie Overton and Saqib Mahmood coming through, as with the batting innings, where I think we know that England have got a pretty packed, pretty stacked batting lineup. They got runs all the way down. They've got aggression all the way down. Jacob Bettel has really added something, I think, to the lower middle order, and I think, yeah, I mean, England really do have to pull their finger out in white ball cricket. The results have just, they obviously weren't acceptable under Joss Butler, and if they don't, manage to string a few wins together, they're in a position where they might actually have to qualify for the next World Cup, which 2 editions after winning it on home soil in 2019 would be pretty humiliating. So yeah, this is a pretty courageous and solid start from them.
As seems compulsory now, we have to put Ball onto the name of the new captain, so it's welcome to Brooke Ball in the Times. They report New England captain off to winning start as attacking style leads to 238-run trouncing of the West Indies in first ODI at Edgbaston. Can we say there's a distinct style? What was the opposition like? Do we take that into account?
No, I mean, the West Indies are that kind of in transition. I think they have a little bit further to fall, to be honest. But you can only beat what's put in front of you. England were losing to all comers at the last World Cup, and I think this is where we're going to see the effects of McCullum taking over the white ball team as well. This is where we're really going to see whether that's going to bear fruit.
Yep, we'll see that with interest with England. Good start, 3 ODIs in total against the West Indies. Brilliant test series coming up against India as well. Let's talk football again, Charlie, with your paper. And Manchester City, Khaldoon Al-Mubarak being interviewed and says, we'll be back. Haaland at heart of our 10-year plan to dominate. We lacked aggression in the summer transfer market. Now we'll splash out big before Club World Cup. I noticed the word aggressive is used by Al-Mubarak. Charlie, what did you make of this? Came out punching, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think most City fans and probably even Pep Guardiola would agree with him. Obviously, a hugely disappointing season. He's saying in that interview it's been their most challenging season since the 2008 takeover. And yeah, I think they're looking to really make amends and make some signings now, like in the next week. They've got the Club World Cup. And it looks as though Tiani Reinders from Milan could be going there, 55 million midfielder. So he could be the first player, but there'll be a few more after him. But it's strange. There's almost sort of mixed messages at the moment because, Pep Guardiola is saying one stage he wants to bring quality in. And then, a few days later, he's saying, his squad's too big. But quite clearly, the City chairman wants to invest heavily. And don't forget, they signed 4 players in January. But yes, City will be looking to come back big. But I think it'll be tough for them to challenge Liverpool next year because they've sort of fallen so far behind.
Yeah, it's got Erling Haaland, haven't they, pictured in the Terminator get-up, Jonathan, there. There's also, tongue-in-cheek, the Sun says no mention of those 130 charges, which, of course, Manchester City deny those charges, waiting for a ruling to be announced on that. What do you think of the season ahead, Jonathan? How challenging a one for Pep Guardiola? Maybe one of the most in his career?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think they were actually pretty impressive in the second half of this season, where it looked at times like the wheels were going to come off completely. But I think where Khaldoon's comments are quite interesting. He talks about aggression in the transfer market. It's not just about backing your targets and identifying your targets and scorched earth in the transfer market. It's giving Guardiola the squad he wants and letting go of people, trimming the squad down and trimming the right people. Reinders is a good player. Mateus Nunes was a good player. Savinho is a good player. Are any of them better than Cole Palmer, who they let go for 40 million? So it's striking that balance between giving Guardiola the streamlined squad he wants, making the right decisions in the transfer market, not just buying players for the sake of it. And I think that's what's going to define not just City for the next season, but the next few seasons, because they are trying to rebuild this team, and it's a big test for Hugo Viana, the new sporting director. Yeah,
a lot of young players have left, haven't they, Charlie? What's your anticipation of what we're going to see building up to this Club World Cup? How frenetic is it going to be for Manchester City, maybe Chelsea as well?
Yeah, well, it looks as though Delap's going to be on his way eventually, and as we've just said, Reinders as well. And I think that's leading into a tournament, by the way, that I actually think is going to be intriguing. I actually think it'll end up being a big success. I think a lot of people will get into it, and of course, all the players out there, they're all going to want to win it. So yeah, I think it will be more of a success than what people think, and I think City and Chelsea would both obviously love to be the first team to actually win. They've won it before, both of them, haven't they? But under this new tournament, it's going to go on for a month. But yeah, it will be intriguing.
It'll roll into the new season. Jonathan, we've got about 10 seconds. How excited are you about the Club World Cup?
I'm going on holiday. I couldn't care less.
Could have a break as well. Flamenco, Tunis, Esperance Sportif, Chelsea and Los Angeles in Group D. We'll see how it gets on. Jonathan and Charlie, thank you very much for now. Thank you for watching the programme as well. If you missed any of the show, another chance to see back pages tonight at hour. And the show's also available as a podcast. Just download back pages on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Join us again Friday night. The guests will be Ian Ladyman and from the Daily Mail, and ESPN's Mark Ogden, a Friday night regular. Up next then, Chelsea making moves, closing on Liam Delap. All the details of that potential move next.